Every idea, every story starts with a spark, a tiny light that glows. But to speak up, to be heard, to innovate takes courage. We're here to ignite that tiny spark. We're here to foster Canadian voices, our narratives, our ideas. We're here to spark courage. Our logo is a showcase for our culture, our storytellers, our innovators, and it reflects our creators and communities. The Spark is a catalyst to push boundaries, to drive the future, and for Canadian voices to be heard on a global stage.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us at the Future Film Showcase 2021 edition, hosted by CBC Gem. My name is Zachary Goldkind, and I'm the lead programmer of the festival. I'm very happy to be joined by Nisha Platzer for a small conversation about not only their film featured in our program this year, but their whole body of work. And ideally, we'll be able to dig a bit into the core of their artistic practices. Nisha, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We're very happy, and it's a pleasure to have you. A privilege, really. And so really to jump into it, my first question speaks towards the environment, nature specifically, as it seems to take a pretty dominant role in the imaginations of your viewers when watching your films. Your titles, per se, Seed, Vaivén, which is the film's Spanish title, meaning sway, and of course, Tulips are my father's favorite flower. Your upcoming feature, Back Home, displays in its trailer many shots of landscapes as seen through POV, even involving bare feet wrestling against the naked earth. Why instill into us these vagrant images and sentiments towards nature? What is it to you?
I guess expression and nature go together rather seamlessly, I think. So for, both art and the natural world are outlets within which to express, within which to experience, and where I find calm. So often going to the forest or going to the ocean could bring the same release or inspiration or solace that going into the dark room or getting behind a camera could. And yeah, like all of my films are completely different when they begin to when they finish. So there's that element of process that is, I guess, an engagement with whatever circumstance you're surrounded by, whether that be nature or time and place or collaborators. Yeah, so even if you're working alone on a project, I think there's a sense of collaboration with whatever environment you're in. And then the more literal sense, I guess, would be eco-processing film with plants and seaweed and stuff like that.
I guess just to jump off of your answer there, the idea of a film beginning and ending very differently, all of them. I'd be interested to sort of hear about what that process was for Tulips is my father's favorite flower.
Yeah, Tulips was made, it started as part of a workshop actually with Phil Hoffman, who came to our school in Cuba and gave a workshop. And I had been wanting to learn from him for a very long time. So it was fun that we didn't meet in Canada, but in Cuba instead. And he's been giving workshops there for many years. So that was just an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to try processes I hadn't tried before. So contact printing was new to me. And yeah, it was really an exploration. In that environment, the school environment in EICTV in Cuba is very immersive. Like everybody lives together in the school on a farm. It's pretty much eat, sleep, breathe cinema all the time. So that energy is constantly surrounding us all. And I think that really played into it. Like I think we made that film in a couple of days. Really. And then when I came back to Canada, well, it's a loop, right? Like it was made as a 16 millimeter loop that was projected live. So then in order to show it in festivals, I made a digital version, which is this 3-minute version of a 1-minute loop, and then had Apollo make music to go with it. But yeah, it certainly didn't turn out in any way how I originally imagined. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was just trying things and having fun and exploring and learning.
No, I mean, then I'd like to then go Tulips, it's a short work that in its appearance hasn't much to do with flowers nor fathers. Its abstracted, manipulated imagery offers an openness that allows the spectator to interact freely. Your title, of course, however, suggests ideas that allow for those who seek it an emotionality to connect these visions with. How do you feel about a spectator's narrative drive attaching itself to your title in order to make sense of what follows? Was it an experiment in association to begin with? Does an audience's reaction and creation of meaning matter to you?
Yeah, I certainly with this film, but I think with all of my films, I'm not very attached to anybody, quote unquote, understanding the film. I want them to feel the film, and I want them to experience emotion or sensation. So if someone connects with it for one reason that's meaningful for them, and then somebody else connects with it for a totally different reason, then I see that as a very positive outcome. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of joy and exploration, as I said, with making this, but I was also reflecting on cycles of pain and sort of noticing and paying tribute to a constant underlying beauty that exists in parallel with that pain. So it's incorporating notions of retreat and wandering and exploration and hope even.
For me, while watching, obviously, this sort of interaction between the title and, what was to follow was personally something very just tangible. Like the idea of tulips are my father's favorite flower became, more about sort of watching the sensation of even like feeling and touching the flower itself while just observing this sort of abstraction and haze that you created. And so for me, that notion of sort of like, it was constantly, honestly, almost an internal fight, like trying to fight away like this sort of like emotionality that perhaps was being I was guided towards, because for me, it was just the tangibility that really sort of was striking and sticking out of the work. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, we're thrilled to have it show here. But I am curious about, touching on your work through the many different spheres of exhibition and dissemination that you sort of, being positioned within. You went to the International School of Cinema in Cuba, you studied at Concordia in Montreal, and now you're currently based in Vancouver. So how have you maneuvered your work through these very distinct realms? I'm curious to your observations and experiences with making and showing work in spaces that already have such a unique character and infrastructure of their own.
Yeah, they certainly are very distinct environments. I think what's fundamental for me is connection. So wherever I am connecting with people is the foundation, and in making films, I think it has to be the foundation. You know, whether you're working alone or you have people in your film or not, there's always, you know, there's a need to get to know the people around you. So, yeah, connecting with people, connecting with place. So the short film that I made in Cuba, well, Tulips was started in Cuba, but By Ven is the name of a short documentary I made in Cuba. And there, the protagonist, Nori, I only met him a week before we went to camera. So there was, you know, I felt like I wanted to get to know him quickly and, you know, see if he would be the right person and if he wanted to make the film together, and have him feel part of it and comfortable and all of that. So yeah, I think it became important to not just you know, ask him questions, but also share and be vulnerable and you know, connect authentically. Like I know people make films about people they don't like, and I don't know how. I don't think I could do that because yeah, I really, you know, I felt a sibling type of connection with Nori, which, yeah, was really special. And yeah, so I think that wherever I go, it doesn't really matter, because as long as there's a connection with other human beings. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess in terms of showing work, I've shown work primarily in experimental film festivals or documentary film festivals, and both of those communities are really supportive and encouraging of each other, which I think is why I've primarily worked in those realms. I don't thrive or enjoy competition. Don't thrive in competition, and so I think celebrating each other's wins is really just something that I want to participate in. Mm-hmm. Montreal and Cuba, both of those environments where I was in educational institutions, you know, like provided opportunities to explore and experiment and try out processes that I hadn't tried before. But also outside of a school context, both of those places, there's such a thriving artistic world to be inspired by and to find people and approach and say, like, hey, I really like what you're doing. Can we hang out? And find friends as well as collaborators.
I'd like to just pivot a little bit and just talk about quickly, because I think that I look at you and I see you in like a very specific position within, I guess, a Canadian infrastructure, having gotten Talent to Watch for a film that Talent to Watch isn't seemingly there to really, you know, support fundamentally, in terms of like a documentary that seems, you know, more interested in abstracting its sort of trajectory and finding something more in the experimental field, in terms of what I've been able to see, at least. And so I'm wondering the process that you've gone through in their Talent to Watch production, the process with telefilm and creating something that, you know, doesn't usually fit the average telefilm produced work. Right.
So you're referring to Back Home, which
Yes.
is a featured creative documentary that will be ready next year. I've been working on for more years than I wish to reveal. But I mean, I really applaud telefilm for taking a risk.
100%.
And the beauty of Talent to Watch in a lot of ways is you really have freedom to make your film. Like, they don't involve themselves in the creative process whatsoever with Talent to Watch. So I don't know if I'll ever get to do this again, like have a budget to make a feature without anybody offering their opinion in that way from a funder's perspective. So your question is, what was the process like?
Yeah, you just sort of like being a part of that infrastructure and making a work that's pretty dislocated from typical aesthetic ventures that you'd see coming from that body.
Yeah, I guess because it's kind of new to them, they didn't, maybe it would have been much harder to receive that funding with a narrative work, because maybe they have more specific ideas of what they're looking for. Whereas with this, they were kind of like, oh, this is new and we're open to seeing the landscape of film change. Like, I think we're starting to see more crossover between forms of filmmaking. It's not like, oh, this is so clearly a narrative and document. There's still lots of those films, but I really see the line being blurred much more between fiction and nonfiction, and being able to bring in a handmade aesthetic to this film. I think it was just about justifying it, right? Like you don't just bring in experimental visuals because they look cool. I mean, you could, but for me, it's very much tied to the film and the story, because it's about grief and loss. And, I began to learn photography and darkroom processes in tandem with this experience of grief that began when I was much younger. So for me, they are intrinsically tied together. And I think when I could express that, then it made it, it just makes more sense in the context of a film.
No, 100%. And I'm thrilled, very excited to be able to see it once it's complete. And I guess moving just back to Tulips for the final question. This is a question I have been asking many of the artists whose work sort of engages with hand processed or mediatory work. I guess why engage in that manipulation of the image? Like what does sort of, intervening yourself physically do? I mean, he was speaking about sort of obviously Phil's workshop, and I'm a student of Phil, and so I know getting the hands-on approach to it, and for me, it's not entirely something I'm totally drawn to. So that's why I'd love to just hear perspective.
I think just discovery of new modes of expression is very appealing to me. Not knowing whether it's going to work or not, going in, trying out a process, and when it does and you emerge from the dark with an image, it's the most thrilling and satisfying sensation. With Tulips, as I said, it was the first time I had tried contact printing, and I might not have had the courage if not for Phil being there. And I think why manipulate an image? Like, I don't know, why write a poem? Why do anything? It's just, it's playful, and it can lead to, a new way of engaging with filmmaking if it's new to you.
Your sort of analogy of the manipulation to a poem, I think it's very apt when Elsa's looking to Tulips, because it does very much feel like that. I mean, even your notion of sort of taking that cycle and repeating it 3 times, very much like a haiku in verse. Sort of, and I mean, if I know Phil's practice, I mean, he loves his haikus, and so and so this idea of like really creating something of your own through that process, through something more verse-like, and I mean, and it creates a surprise, an affect, of course, really, that I'm very, very excited for all of the audiences across Canada to appreciate and take in and sit with. Because Tulips is my father's favorite flower is now streaming on CBC Gem. So I hope everyone watching this goes to watch that or has already seen that and was so taken by it that they had to hear the thoughts of the filmmaker. And so with that, Nisha, I'd like to thank you so much for joining me today. I'd like to thank you so much for your film. And really, again, just thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Zach. Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure to be part of the festival. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.